You ever get sucked into those epic spacewalk scenes, like that one in Gravity with Sandra Bullock clinging to the ISS?
Oh, yeah. Those scenes are intense.
Heart pounding. But, it got me thinking, how much of that Hollywood drama lines up with, like, actual spacewalking?
That's what we're diving into today. What it really takes to work in the silent vacuum of space.
Buckle up, folks. We're separating fact from fiction in our deep dive on spacewalks.
And it's fascinating stuff. Even today, spacewalking is a whole lot more than just stepping out of an airlock.
Okay, so picture this.
Mhm.
We're prepped for our deep dive, right? Oh, but first, we got to suit up. In movies, spacesuits are skin tight, super sleek. What's the reality check?
Yeah, Hollywood loves that sleek aesthetic. Makes for a better silhouette on screen, I
Right.
guess.
Makes sense.
But in reality, a real spacesuit is more like your own personal spacecraft. Bulky, multi-layered.
Like a life-saving shell.
Exactly. Especially in such a harsh environment, out in the vacuum of space. You're toast without it.
Literally toast. Okay, so it's not just about looking cool, it's about serious life support, obviously. What are the absolute, like, make or break functions of a real spacesuit?
Well, first and foremost, you need to breathe.
Right.
No casual breath holding in space.
Mhm.
So, spacesuits have an oxygen supply, obviously, and they scrub out carbon dioxide, just like a closed system.
So you don't suffocate on your own. Exhale.
Exactly. And then there's pressure. Can't forget about pressure. A spacesuit has to maintain pressure to keep your body functioning normally without it.
Things get kind of messy.
Uh, yeah, to put it mildly. And we haven't even gotten to the temperature extremes yet.
Oh, right. Because in space, you're either baking in the sun or freezing in the shade, right?
Yeah.
How does a spacesuit handle that?
Huge design challenge, installation, reflective materials, you name it. One side of you could be hundreds of degrees hotter than the other. Temperature regulation is a matter of life or death.
Wow. And to think, I'm worried about my coffee getting cold. So, what about other dangers? What are some things people might not even think about?
Well, then we got to talk about micrometeoroids.
Micrometeoroids, those sound tiny.
They are tiny, often, yeah, like a grain of sand, maybe. But think about it. Something that small zipping through space at like tens of thousands of miles an hour,
Yikes.
that can cause some serious damage. So spacesuits are designed with layers and layers of tough material for exactly that reason.
Talk about attention to detail.
Yeah.
The engineers who design these suits. Incredible.
They've thought of everything. There was that incident a few years back. Astronaut suit got a small tear during a spacewalk.
Oh, I remember hearing about that.
Thankfully, they were able to get back inside, no problem. But still, it shows you just how critical every single component is.
That's a good segue to my next point.
Mm-hmm.
Movies always make moving around in space look like so effortless. How does gravity or the lack of it really affect things?
Yeah, it's a common thing, that whole zero gravity in space. But really, it's more like gravity is everywhere. It's just very weak in many areas where we work.
Okay, I see. So it's not like gravity just disappears. It's more about how strong or weak it is.
Exactly. You wouldn't walk on the moon, for example. You'd be like bouncing, hopping.
So those scenes we always see of astronauts, just bouncing effortlessly on the moon, that's not quite accurate.
A bit of artistic license there, for sure. Even on the International Space Station, which is, in a constant state of free fall, you don't walk, you float.
Right, like in those videos we see of astronauts goofing off on the ISS.
Exactly. And even those goofing off moments are a testament to how unique and challenging it is to adapt to that microgravity environment. Even eating or just moving around takes a whole new set of skills.
It's amazing how adaptable humans are, though. But I do have one more thing about those space scenes. Sound, it's always so dramatic. Explosions, roaring engines.
Yeah.
What's it really like out there?
And this is where those movie magic tricks really come into play. See, in the vacuum of space, there's no air. And what does sound need to travel?
Earth, right.
Bingo. So in reality, all those epic space battles, totally silent.
Whoa, that's actually kind of eerie to think about.
Right.
Never really thought about it like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on from the sounds of space or lack thereof, let's talk about the reality of space travel. Because Hollywood makes it look easy. Spaceships zipping around.
Yeah.
What's the reality check there?
Remember those basic physics laws, from back in the
Oh,
day?
no, you're not going to quiz me, are you?
Nope. But those laws of motion, they still apply in space. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
Right, right. What goes up must come down, or something like that.
Kind of. But the point is, you can't just slam on the brakes in space. No sudden turns.
It's more about those tiny thrusters you see on the space station.
Exactly. It takes time, Careful planning and some serious math to maneuver those things. It's not as simple as, turning the steering wheel.
Makes those astronauts look even more skilled, honestly.
Hmm.
Speaking of intense realities, what about those scenes where someone gets, like, blasted out of a spaceship without a suit?
Yes. Classic space movie trope.
What really happens?
Well, it's not the instant freeze that movies love to show, turning into a human popsicle.
Right.
It's more complicated. See, while the lack of pressure would absolutely cause the fluids in your body to vaporize.
Wait, vaporize?
Yeah, basically boil away.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be able to breathe, obviously. You wouldn't freeze instantly.
Okay.
The vacuum of space is actually a really good insulator, so it slows down heat loss.
So theoretically, a human could survive for a very, very short time.
Very, very short. And I still wouldn't recommend it. The reality is just far more complex and more dangerous than Hollywood makes it seem.
Absolutely. So, big takeaway today. Spacewalks, not a simple stroll in the park, right?
No, not at all. But that's what makes it so incredible. The reality is far more complex, far more dangerous, but way more fascinating.
100%. Knowing how dangerous it actually is out there makes those achievements even more impressive. The ingenuity, the bravery.
Couldn't agree more.
It really makes you appreciate everyone who ventures out beyond our atmosphere.
Amazing people.
And on that note, we've come to the end of today's deep dive into the reality of spacewalks.
Very chat.
But before we go, one last thought. If sound can't travel in space, what happens to all those satellites and pieces of space junk constantly colliding up there? Just a silent symphony of destruction. Something to think about. Until next time, keep exploring.